Okay, I'll try and record this video again. This is a general comment on the ridiculous joke that our society has become, and I want to stimulate other people to start thinking about what our society could be, instead of just going along with what is a real problem, or complaining with no idea in mind of what could be. Now, we have, as human beings, a great power, which is, if we choose to exercise it, control of our own minds. And if you choose to, you can gather up the reins of your life, of your mind, of yourself, and direct them. And if you look around you at the way that our world is currently designed, you can see, if you really open your eyes, that it's designed 50% with good intention, okay, so as to function well for people, for humanity. And then at the moment you'll see that I would say 50% of it is a disgraceful mess, which is designed to undermine people's feelings and thoughts of independence and strength, which I think help people to contribute to strong nations, to strong countries. And since the people who are producing the disgraceful media, which is trying to undermine people's self-confidence and demoralize them, have the intention of destroying nations and undermining them whilst pretending not to, you can see that what's happening around everyone is the result of actions taken so as to weaken countries, to weaken nations, because there are particular interests who want to form a one world government. Now, they will sell that idea to people as if it's a nice, good, happy thing. But the problem is, it's okay, so I'm not an expert on communism, okay, but the only way you could possibly enforce it or produce it is by removing freedoms from people and weakening them so that they become subservient, and that would destroy the natural order of things, which is that people who decide to produce strong behavior, strong for themselves, succeed and rise to the top of things. If you think about each and every time a communist situation has been installed, the first thing that has to happen is a period of time called terror. The terror. For example, in the French Revolution they called it la terreur, if my pronunciation is correct. It just means the terror. In other circumstances they call it the Red Terror, and it's a purge of all of the people who could possibly fight back. That is, people who have their own independence and strength, people who are a threat to the intended communist doctrine and leadership. And those are people who think for themselves. I think that they're the people called the intelligentsia in, I suppose, probably was originally Russian. Those people are rounded up and shot, usually. People who could possibly pose a threat. And that terrorizes people into a condition of submission. It's the only way it can be installed. And thereafter, people are completely and utterly powerless. Now, the people who designed communism were trying to use it as a tool. It's not the only tool, it's one tool so as to aid their mission to control the world. And they didn't give up when the Soviet Union fell. They didn't just walk away and disappear and go, oh well, never mind. What they chose was a different tack, and they chose to try and achieve the goals instead of at the end of a gun, using basically the media. That was their main. Now their main tool. And they, at the moment, they're the same people. They're the same people, exactly the same people, but they've cloaked themselves in, I would say, a frilly dress. But they are the same thing that we have to fight against and win against and beat. They are acting as though they are softly, gentle, etc., etc. And that's why feminism is such a powerful tool of theirs that they've tried to use, because it's the gentle, sickly version of what you might call communism, or that you might call of communism. I don't know if that sentence made sense. It's a sickly, weak. It pretends to be weak, but in fact it's a slow, reaching version of communism. So the original version was destruction, terror, and oppression. And now, because that hasn't actually borne the fruit entirely that it was intended to, the people who generated it decided, they changed their minds, and they were like, okay, fine, well, we've got that tool available, but it's not the only tool. We need to use another tool. So we will create a soft tool that we can use to cause the people of a country to actually undermine their own country. So we'll try and condition them and poison their minds to hate themselves, to be weak. Weakness is strength, for example. Everything. They're trying to create this situation where everything which we have always stood for in any society that's worth anything, good moral values, decency, is considered wrong, and corruption is considered right. And they've done this in a slow way, and you can see it in the kind of media that's being produced. Everything's negative. I saw a little poster today, the gangs of London. These guys produce media focusing only on the negative in society. Alright? They're the same people who are responsible for producing most of the pornography. Alright? They focus on the parts of a society which are vulnerable. Okay? And they try and weaken people. If you can imagine a people or a group completely and utterly devoted only to the undermining of other people, not to their own aggrandizement, not to their own success, but to the undermining of other people. And that's what we're up against here, which is why it's so important for a person, an individual, to take control of their own mind, first and foremost. That's critical, okay, to defeat these people. Because what they use the media for is to try and subvert a person's natural inclinations to do what is right for themselves and what is right for their society. Okay, and you can see it in all the media that's produced. Alright, a lot of it is just downright poisonous. Okay, which is why I would say, I would reiterate something I've said before, which is be very selective about the media that you allow yourself to be exposed to, because it can be very dangerous. Because at the moment it's largely in the hands of people who have very nefarious intentions. So they're trying to soften us up. Okay, and that's what feminism's for, is to soften us up. Alright? The female is the soft, the male is the hard. That's a fact, okay? You may... what's funny is, if some people hearing this would be like, oh! And they ought to really stop and think. Okay? They really ought to stop and think about how far the conditioning that they've been exposed to has warped their sense of reality, to the point where when I say the woman is soft and the man is hard, they are shocked. That's how absurd this conditioning is. It's the height of absurdity, but it's been gentle, and it's been so gentle as to go unnoticed by a lot of people, but also it's been noticed by enough people, and eventually, well, now, enough people are aware of it, and enough people have taken back possession of their own minds that we can now do away with it. Okay, this poisonous thing that's been imposed upon most of humanity, especially in the West, and that everyone else is following suit, has now reached the point where so many people are aware of it. You know, the problem is the people who are doing it, they can't help but get impatient with it, because it's the softly approach, and they know that eventually people are going to kind of get wind of it. So, but all they can do is to try their best to paint over it and say, no, nothing to see here, no, and focus on producing so much media as distraction that their intention is to try and make everyone not see what they've done. Right? They try and mask their lies with even more lies. The problem is they can never, ever succeed. They can't. Because they're not creating anything. All they're ever doing is trying to corrupt stuff. And there's a point in any of any such endeavour of theirs where the people that they've been trying to affect suddenly say, hang on a minute. No matter how far the illusion has gone, it's the same as the story of the emperor's new clothes. You know, the emperor receives these people into his kingdom, these travelling tailors, and then they say to him, we've got this wonderful material, we'll make you a fabulous set of clothing. And eventually they come up with this nothing. And they say, this is fabulous clothing, there's nothing there. And they convince him, because he's so embarrassed that he's invested time and money in these people, in these charlatans, they convince him that he should put on this imaginary clothing and walk around naked. That's what these people who are doing this are like. They create nothing. They're just liars. Okay? You've got to understand that these people exist and that this is their preoccupation, which is why it's so alien to people when you present them with this notion that there are people like this. They say, well, how can this be? Well, because these people are devoted to this manner of being. Okay? So eventually, in that story, a little girl, or a young child, points to the king and says, the king's got no clothes, or the emperor has no clothes. And then the ruse is exposed. And this is what's happening now. The people who have devoted their energy to this nonsense, there's a threshold moment where people's rationality breaks through and they say, nope, no more. And that's what's happening. Now, woe betide the people who've done this. But at the same time, it doesn't solve anything to go as an individual in the direction of attacking. The best thing to do is to focus on a route forward, the best way forward. Okay? Yes, these people have done something wrong. Well, that's on their consciences. We as a people, and I'm talking to everyone here of any nation, really need now to focus on building our nations up again and making them strong, because that's the human way. We're not weak people. We don't just flip and flop around. We've been tricked and we need to accept it. The damage has been done and then rectify it. So when you're walking around and looking around yourself, bear in mind that the society that has been produced around you is a fictitious joke that we now need to put behind us and move on from. Okay? That's how it is. And feminism, for example, is one of the tricks that have been used. So we abandon it and go back to reality. Just a video for the day.